Okay, the old waiter has what? What does the old waiter have? Well, he has knowledge. He has knowledge. He has that certain crusty wisdom that comes with age, but that changes depending on how you live your life. So I know some old people without a lot of wisdom. And I know some young people with remarkable wisdom. So wisdom isn't always strictly associated with age. What does the story say? What does he say in response to the question? The younger waiter asks him, "What are you lacking?" And does anybody remember what he says? Everything but the job. He says, because he had listed off the things that the youth has, and he says, "Well, what are you lacking?" And he says, "I'm lacking all of that, except the job. Yeah, I got a job. Other than that, I don't have the youth." And he says, "I never was confident. You have this confidence, this vision of the future. I never even had that." So he's kind of a tragic figure as well. Okay, let's read the actual bit here. "You have youth, confidence, in a job," the older waiter said. "You have everything." And of course, by that, he's also sort of intimating, I think, about his wife, his family. The younger waiter asks, or responds here, "And what do you lack?" "Everything but work." He says, "You have everything I have." "No, I have never had confidence, and I am not young." So he does not have the things that the youth has. All right. So this is another line a little later on. Now, and as short as this story is, in the interest of time, I am going to kind of run through some bits and run past some bits so that we can get to the really meaty parts. And this is one of the meaty parts. At the end here, now they've had some exchange there in the cafe. They finally got the old guy to leave to pay his bill and to go out. And he left him a little tip, and he staggered out the door. It was an interesting point. I could have put a slide up for this too. I thought it was interesting the way that they described the old man leaving, unsteady, but still with dignity. I thought that was interesting. Unsteady with age, unsteady with drink, maybe a little of both, but either way, he still had dignity. So when we look at the old man, and the old man is kind of a foil here. He's acting in the literary sense really almost more just as a foil. He is there as someone to project on or to draw ideas from without ever actually participating. And so we see him as somebody he had money, he's dignified. The only word that we ever really have to describe his character is dignified. So I thought that was very interesting. Anyway, now we're talking about the old waiter here. What did he fear? It was not a fear or dread. It was a nothing that he knew too well. It was all and nothing. And a man, by the way, you should be writing this on your sheets and be watching very closely. If these words aren't on there, the next ones will be. It was all and nothing, and a man was a nothing too. It was only that, and light was all it needed, and a certain cleanliness and order. Some lived in it and never felt it. But he knew it all was nada y pues nada, y nada y pues nada. Any Spanish speakers? What does that mean, nada y pues nada? But I mean, the y pues part, what is that? How do you use that? Huh? What's that? Yeah, it's like then. Okay, so this is a phrase that sometimes you use at the end or the beginning of a sentence that's like, yeah, well, anyway. Yeah, well, it's that kind of a thing. It's that sort of meaningless words that we interject at the beginning or the end of a sentence to say that this whole sentence is going to kind of wrap up an idle thought. That's kind of how that phrase is used. And it's so common, it's so familiar. In Spanish, it's almost like it's just one of those things you don't even really think about the meaning. It just means what it means, right? So it's difficult to translate. So I had to actually spend some real effort at getting a good translation of that. But thank you, ladies and gentlemen, back there for your input on that. Okay, it's all this, and he's going through this line of thinking, and he finishes this with nada pues nada, nada pues nada. It's just nothing. It's nothing. It's like nothing. It's like nothing. And then he goes into this, directly into this. And this is the part that I said becomes sort of the nihilist's creed. Our nada who art in nada. Nada be thy name, thy kingdom. Nada, thy will be nada. In nada as it is in nada. Give us this nada, our daily nada, and nada us our nada as we nada our nadas, and nada us not into nada, but deliver us from nada. Pues nada. It's all just meaningless. It's all just meaningless. Hail nothing, full of nothing, nothing is with thee. Right? So he goes from the Lord's Prayer to the Annunciation. Right? And it's all nada. It's all nothing. Those of us who don't speak Spanish, at least you know the word nada, right? And the story's taking place in Spain, hence the use of nada for everything. This becomes sort of the nihilist creed. Everything is nothing. Nothing is everything. I'm giving you some time to finish the writing in the back. This is the part you should have been writing down in your notes. All right. So he goes into this bar finally. Now the young guy has chased him out, and he didn't want to leave anyway because he has no place to go, and he is lonely, and he doesn't really have a life. The young guy chases him out because he wants to go home. And the old guy finally says, okay, fine, I'll go to this bar. I'll go to the Bodega. How do you pronounce that properly? Bodega. Bodega. Thank you. I know I said it wrong. The Bodega. He goes to the Bodega, which is like a little bar cafe kind of thing. Right? Yeah. Okay. That's what all the stuff that I researched told me. I'm sure there are other definitions if you're actually more fluent. But all the stuff that I looked up basically said, yeah, it's like a little cafe bar type thing. But in this case, it's kind of dingy. He points out that it was well lighted, but the bar was not gleaming, wasn't polished, it wasn't clean. All right, so the barman asks, "What's yours?" And he says, "Nada." Right? So they have, "What's yours?" What he's asking is, what'll you have? What can I get you? Nada. Otro loco más. Another crazy guy. That's what he's saying. Yeah, great. Another crazy guy. That's what I need. He says, and he just turns away and he leaves him there. So what makes the waiter feel that he's crazy? Another crazy person, he says, what makes him feel that he's crazy? Why does, okay, go ahead. Yeah, nada. But I mean, explain. Yeah, explain. Why does that one word make the bartender just like another crazy guy? Walk away from him. That's not a response. He asks him, what do you have? Nothing. Well, then what are you doing at my bar? You know, crazy person, go bother somebody else. What do you have? Nothing. Nada. But what's going on inside of his mind? That whole big, nothing. That whole big, because this is right on the heels of that, right? This comes immediately after that whole thing that's gone through his mind. Our nada, which art in nada, okay? He's got that whole deal going on in his head. Yeah, and he's saying, there's nothing. There's nothing in life. What will you have? And so he asked, what's yours? What do you have? And he said, nothing. Now, think about it very carefully because the expression, as it comes out in English, what's yours? How would you say, if somebody came up, how would a waiter actually ask that question? What did he say? And which literally, word for word, how would that translate? What is yours? Okay, so you walk up and again, what is yours? In other words, what is your interest? What is your pleasure? And what is the answer? Nothing. I have no interest. I have no pleasure. Okay? That's what's going on here. So Hemingway is really doing something kind of deep, playing with the language. Because the old waiter has no pleasure. He has no love. He has no joy. He has nothing. So what's yours? What's in the implied word there is what's your interest? What do you want, right? What is it that would make you happy right now? Nothing. So he's got nothing. So let me ask you, is the old waiter crazy? We put a lot of meaning on that word. We put a lot of different ways of looking at that. But what we're really talking about is that something in that person's mind is not locking up right? The parts aren't coming into, they're not gelling. The parts aren't fitting together inside that person's mind. So can we actually maybe agree with the bartender that the old waiter stuff isn't fitting right in his brain, and maybe he doesn't know it because he's still rational in his own thinking, in his own opinion at least. He's still rational, but is there something missing? Is there something that's keeping his thoughts from gelling? That's something that I'm going to have you just chew on. There's no right answer, but I'm going to have you chew on that. Consider if there is a possibility that maybe all of this despair is somehow a reflection of his lack of feeling anything. In the end, the old waiter is afraid of being alone because he believes there is nothing of value in the world. In the whole world, in his mind, there is nothing of value. By the way, remember back earlier, early part of the story, the young waiter says, I'm anxious to go home. My wife is there in bed with me, or in bed waiting for me. And he says, are you sure you want to go home early then? As in, it's a little dig as in because, somebody else might be there, and if you get home early, you're going to catch her, find her doing something you don't want to see, right? That's the implication. That's actually the subtext there. Okay, so even the family, even the love, the old waiter is making fun of it. He's actually, because the kid says, what, are you basically calling me a cuckold? What are you talking about here? And he said, nah, just making a stupid joke. The old waiter passes it off. But where does that come from? Where does that idea come from in his heart? Remember, this is Hemingway. Hemingway wastes no words. So why does he have that reaction when the other is talking about love, right? I'm thinking that is Hemingway's way of telling us that the old waiter does not believe in love. Maybe because he's been burned in the past, maybe just because he's never really felt the real thing, maybe because he's just old and jaded. But whatever the case, even that is denied to him. There's nothing of value in the world, nothing here and now, nothing later, nothing ever. That is the epitome of bleakness, and it's the epitome of nihilism. And Hemingway was described by various different critics as being the same as the old waiter, or possibly the old waiter being Hemingway's vision of himself.